So we're making these giant piles of rock with 8 volunteers. Once we get them all piled, we have a community leader from town who's donated his time and vehicle to move them from here to Esso Landing, where our boats and our Tides boats and rangers are going to transport them from there out to Abalone Caye, where we will begin our first stage of restoration.
You can see behind me there's this area which is a shallow shelf. What's actually happening is the prevailing weather, the waves are coming and they're hitting the shelf, and as soon as they hit that shelf, the waves are building up height and becoming destructive. And what that's actually doing is allowing the waves to come and hit the leading edge of the quay and crash over the shoreline here straight onto the quay itself and flooding the underneath of the building.
And the reason why we put it that far out is because we want the basket to hit the waves further out rather than closer in.
Yeah.
So that it could start block the energy from a wave from out there.
This erosion's been going on for approximately the last 10 years, certainly as long as the building has been standing. But it's now reached a critical point, and it's time that we acted and tried to do something about this.
The ranger station on Abalone Caye is critical to the success of Tides conservation and sustainable marine resource management initiatives in the Port Honduras Marine Reserve because of its central location in the reserve and therefore its accessibility for local fisheries. The prime location of the quay makes it a strategically crucial site from which to patrol Port Honduras Marine Reserve, as well as being a resource for fishers using the reserve for safety and depositing catch data. The success of the Managed Access program also relies on the presence of the Port Honduras Marine Reserve Ranger Station. If the Ranger Station were to be relocated, it would have to be to a more remote and less strategic site, and fishers would be less likely to report and register their catch if they had to travel further distances, especially with viable weather conditions and rising fuel costs. The PHMR Ranger Station acts as a key research and education platform from which species monitoring and conservation education initiatives are conducted. Abalone Caye has received and logged over 1,000 visitors interested in the efforts of Tide and the management of marine reserves since 2007. This provides a unique opportunity for researchers, educators, students, and visitors to experience effective, sustainable natural resource management and to use that experience to support and increase awareness of these efforts. Within the Port Honduras Marine Ranger Station, Tides education and research activities would be much more difficult to accomplish. From an environmental perspective, it is more ecologically responsible to attend to the current location rather than abandon the ranger station, move to another location, and possibly deal with similar erosion problems while compromising accessibility to fishers and their presence in the reserve.
So we've got 10 what they call gabion baskets or cages, which are basically large rectangular wire mesh cages, which we're going to place in strategic location around the leading edge of the shore here. So obviously we want to make sure that whatever construction we do causes the least possible amount of environmental damage and preferably actually enhances the biodiversity and species abundance of this area. So we've been doing like habitat mapping surveys, bathymetric surveys and stuff just to get some baseline data and try and figure out what we've got to start with so that whenever we've built something we can actually see with further surveys how that's actually improved the environment, particularly for commercial species like lobster and conch, which are probably going to really enjoy living in the wall that we build and like in the calm lagoon that's going to be formed between the wall and the island. The solution that we've come up with so far is a two-stage restoration program. The first stage will look at protecting the shoreline immediately with an intermediate measure, and then we'll look towards a longer term solution, probably building a large wall, large-ish wall anyway, a little further offshore.